Look at the camera, right?
Today is June 26th, 2024. My name is Melissa Ackerman, and I will be interviewing Rabbi Mordechai Harris today about his participation on the Israel Solidarity Mission. Hi, Rabbi Harris. How are you today?
I'm well, thank God. How are you?
Good. Can you tell me what your position is with the Federation?
Sure. I am the Chief Impact Officer and Rabbi in Residence for the Federation.
How long have you been with the Federation here?
5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was this your first time visiting Israel?
No.
How many times have you been, and what was the most recent before this trip in February?
So I don't know if I have a good count. I didn't get to Israel until later in life, but then I used to lead Birthright and a bunch of those types of trips, and they add up pretty quickly in that space.
Mm-hmm.
But most recently, before this trip, I had been in Israel actually just this past summer, about 1 year ago.
Okay.
Went with my family on Federation business as well as just personal family, right? Most of our family, on both my side and my wife's side, live in Israel.
Okay.
But poignantly, one of the areas that we went to, just by chance, was to Zikim Beach. And now Zikim is partnered with us as part of our efforts to care for those who were so deeply impacted by October 7th.
Tell me how we're working with that area in partnership.
Sure. So there's a program spearheaded by the Jewish Agency for Israel, JAFE, called Communities Together. It's loosely based on their Partnership Together model, Partnership 2000, being the previous name for Once Upon a Time. The idea that there are sibling cities between America and Israel that should build relationships, and we have one of those partnerships long-standing now in the Western Galilee, where they've, in the north also, certainly been facing elevated
Yeah.
But so following October 7th, as the organized Jewish world was trying to figure out how do we best position ourselves to help those who are impacted, the Jewish Agency proposed that one way was to think about the long-term rebuilding, healing, et cetera, of these communities that were most impacted on October 7th there in the Gaza periphery, by twinning them with an American counterpart. And for us, that community was Zikim. That was picked for us as a community that was, under attack on October 7th. Thank God they were spared of real losses inside the community, because their readiness squad was ready, right? They were effective at keeping the Palestinians outside the fence and outside the perimeter of their community, but just outside their doors was real devastation.
Right. Did you have any concern for your own safety going when you did?
I think before the trip, I think myself and many others on the trip were probably thinking about that. I know my wife certainly was,
Yes.
my kids certainly were.
You have young kids too, don't you?
Yeah, 3 girls.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when we were on the trip itself, there was this profound sense that we were there as part of some sort of calling. That we didn't have to be concerned for our well-being, because as those concerned for the well-being of the Jewish world, that we were somehow going to be safe. It was all going to be protected, right? Whether you want to believe in God, whose protection would be there, or just that sense of community and that invulnerability that we feel when we as a Jewish community are truly united.
Did you feel welcomed by everybody that you had any interaction with, and people that came to talk with you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was a lot of just appreciation that we were there. I think there, to some degree, there's a starvation that we experience in those moments for that connection, right? That sits late, and so often we get caught up in our lives, but when something happens, we need each other. And there was deep appreciation that we had come all the way there to be there for our family in Israel. And also a deep sense of concern for our well-being as they read about anti-Semitism on the rise in the United States.
They were aware of some of the
Absolutely.
things happening here.
Right? I mean, we met with, even when we met with, we're not supposed to call him bougie anymore, right? With the president of Israel, with Herzog. His first question to us as a group was like, are you all okay? We are seeing in the media what's going on in America and the Jewish community, and what the challenge you're facing with anti-Semitism
Right here.
and security.
Right here. It is
Right
frightening.
here. Yeah.
What were some of the most meaningful things you experienced while you were over on that particular trip?
So much. For me, I think as a facilitator on the trip, for me the most meaningful moments were actually the quiet ones. It was observing participants on the trip as they processed what we were experiencing together and had their own mini moments of epiphany where things clicked together for them. And you could see then the seeds of commitment being planted that have now, so much time has passed, have actually translated into real world impact on both, yes, as a community and what we're doing together, and for some of our participants, what they've brought back with them and committed themselves to on that just like personal level to do for.
It's been life-changing for some of the people we've interviewed. It really was very, very important experience. What would you want people to know about what you experienced while you were there?
I think I would want them to know that even now it remains raw, and that there are things in our lives that touch us deeper than our ability to articulate, and these are those types of experiences, and there's tremendous value, right, meaning that we can take, and that sometimes we, kind of question, like, do we, don't we, should we make the commitment, there's time, take off work, etc. Not only in tragedy, but I hope that our community can recognize and can learn that sometimes you say yes to these experiences and they have just an incredible impact on your lives that you may never be able to articulate, but there's nothing quite like that.
Does Federation have plans to do another trip anytime soon?
So nothing that I can say
I'm sorry,
and concretely go live with and say join us on this particular date.
I will.
But
I will
yes, we have, no. It's not because I don't want to share it. Just I can't tell you dates and target demos.
But there is
yet,
interest.
But there's definitely been interest since we've gone for when are you going again, and figuring out the right time to go again to make sure that we're moving the needle on giving in the way that we want to and supporting in the way we want to as a community. Right? One of the things that we talked about before the mission that we were worried about was like this sense of disaster tourism. That were we going to go and create this experience for ourselves at the cost of just the gawk at, the rubberneck at the tragedy. And I'm proud of us that was not at all what happened. And it was a true catalyst for good, both here in Dallas and in Israel. But I also want to make sure that the next time we go is the same, right? It can't become something that we do as just a glitzy experience that we want to be able to brag about or some sort of unique travel opportunity like going to anywhere else on the planet. If we're going to go back, we're going to go back with purpose. And
the people that went on the trip with you, most of them had been in Israel.
Yeah.
And were familiar with a typical trip or a mission.
Yeah, and that was kind of how we set the mission, even as we were advertising it. That was really for members of the Jewish community who had, who were leaders in some vein, either formally or informally, but had had previous Israel experiences and could do something. The goal was
it wasn't a tour.
It was meant to be a catalyst. So we did have a couple of people for whom this really was their first time to Israel, and what a first time it was. But for the most part, these were some people who go regularly. And I think to the individual, there was no one who felt that this trip was parallel to any other that they had been on, whether we've been there at other times in Israel's history, following tragedy and terrorism, and whatever else or otherwise.
Any programs or activities you have participated in since you returned to talk about the trip?
Yeah.
Right now?
It is a big part of my professional portfolio is to continue to drive the narrative around this. And what was it, like a couple weeks ago, it was speaking to over 100 Catholic priests from the Dallas area at their
Oh.
biannual convocation,
Uh-huh.
right? There was so there's the interfaith component and sharing beyond the Jewish community, or speaking within, educating within the Jewish community. There's a lot of opportunities to continue to put this on the map. And in my role at the Federation, I'm also privileged to be part of the planning, the planning team around our relationship with Zikim, as that starts to take shape and form into how we are going to be able to really be their partners.
How have your talks been received by the non-Jewish community when you spoke with that group? How are they responding to it?
I mean, the unfortunate reality is that tragedy does galvanize and catalyze in a way that other things don't. My dream is that we as a Jewish community are able to unite, we as a global community beyond the Jewish community are able to find reasons to be together on positive grounds, and not only find unity through tragedy, but the embrace is there, right?
Good.
There are, I mean, they're all warm audiences. People are not inviting us to speak so that they can challenge us or be challenged by us, right? But the Jewish community isn't alone in their concern following October 7th, whether it's the Catholics or the evangelicals or segments of even the Presbyterian community, which maybe hasn't been as aligned on the national level. But here in Dallas, we've had people reaching out to us from the Islamic community. I mean, we're not alone, and yet there's still a lot of work to do, because it does remain a contentious issue in the American political community.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be. There should be no reason why this isn't a universal cause.
And how could we change that? I mean, how can we change what the world is saying? I mean, how can we affect that? How can we really let the rest of the world know what you really saw there?
I mean, if I had the magic bullet, right?
You don't have it?
No, otherization happens only in the space of ignorance and lack of relationship. I mean, at the end of the day, when you sit down across from another human being and you actually build a relationship, a lot of this goes away. But we're small in number as a people. We always have been, and getting our voice out there is just a matter of persistence and commitment, and one human at a time.
Is your family safe that you have living in Israel?
Yeah, and her, thank God. It was definitely an interesting year, right? Our daughters would start off their day before going to school by checking in with their cousins, who would be calling them via video call from Israel as sirens were going off, and they're hiding in the ma'amad in the safe rooms.
What part of the country do they live?
So, a few different places.
Okay.
Their grandparents are in Rehovot, grandparents in Kfar Saba, the family in
Scattered all
Jerusalem.
over. Yeah. But they're okay?
Yeah.
So far?
So B'li and her, I mean, it's a different reality today in Israel, and the new normal sucks.
Yeah.
But it's also a very resilient. Israel's always been known for its resilience, and Israel's continued to be resilient, and we, as a Jewish community in America, are learning from that resilience and seeking similarly.
Absolutely.
I mean, to face our own challenges as a community and to be there for.
Is there anything else that you might want to talk about that I didn't cover? Some of the highlights of the trip, some of the most meaningful, I don't know if it's called a highlight, but the things that were most impactful that you saw or experienced.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, as a facilitator, I didn't have the opportunity to be as present for the itinerary. I was in the room,
I understand.
but I was thinking about the next step on logistics.
Understand.
So, in some ways, the most powerful moments for those who participated, I was observing those as opposed to a part of those at times. And that's why I think I found my strength and my inspiration from the one-on-ones afterwards, whether it was on the bus or over dinner or at night at the hotel. watching the WhatsApps and
yeah.
seeing the community that that was built amongst the participants, that we started, and many people didn't know each other, and now we're such a close-knit group, and that's given me resolve and strength in this time.
Thank you very much for sitting down and talking to me today. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.